Hello, I'm Grin and welcome to my Halloween video. Now, I know in the last video I appeared, I said I wouldn't be making any October content, and you might be wondering what changed. Well, firstly, management said I could review a movie, which they very rarely let me do, so that pretty much got me interested. And secondly, after making that threat, Grim slit my throat anyway, so since I'm already dead, what's the worst that can happen? Now, I am told that this year we've got a bit of a theme going, where each of the videos coming out in October, we have to wear a outfit from the emergency spooky outfits box, drawn at random. So before I get started, I'm going to draw my outfit. Well, that just figures. It does appear that I have drawn the only women's outfit in the entire box. Look, does it really matter if I just search through the box and find the zombie outfit? That's the one I really wanted.
Just take the one you drew.
I mean, I've got no problem with being a witch, it's just that I wanted to form some kind of consistency with the movie I'm reviewing.
Sexist!
Now, come on. Some of my favorite magical characters are witches. You've got Hermione Granger, Mildred Hubble.
You're reaching, Grin.
Okay, whatever, let's get the show on the road. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to have a look at the father of modern-day zombie films itself, The Night of the Living Dead.
The Night of the Living Dead is a 1968 black and white horror film. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from the decade that brought us Flower Power and the Beatles comes one of the greatest horror movies of all time. These days, zombie movies are literally everywhere and, excuse the pun, done to death. But in 1968, when Night of the Living Dead came out, that was not the case. Night of the Living Dead is by no means the first zombie movie ever made. In fact, I'm pretty sure Grim has already reviewed at least one other zombie movie in Plan 9 from Outer Space. However, The Night of the Living Dead is what made zombies and zombie movies what they are today. It is the first movie that depicted zombies as corpses that have come back to life and eat flesh in a cannibalistic nature. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? In zombie movies that predate Night of the Living Dead, zombies usually have some of these traits, but as far as I'm aware, until Night of the Living Dead, they did not have all of them. For example, zombies in zombie movies dates all the way back to White Zombie, the very first zombie movie, but zombies within the movie White Zombie are almost unrecognizable when compared to zombies of modern-day zombie movies. In modern-day media, a zombie is usually a corpse that becomes reanimated due to an unnatural mutation. That reanimated corpse zombie then usually becomes animalistic and cannibalistic, going on a horrible rampage. There's usually no method to the madness of this horrible rampage, and it's just a killing spree. And until Night of the Living Dead, zombies were more often than not the horde of mindless killing machines that we know and love today, but instead usually were slaves to some kind of master. Often this involved magic where zombies were brought back from the dead as sort of mind slaves for a voodoo master, but sometimes it was aliens controlling these zombies. Therefore, if you like your zombies as mindless reanimated corpses that shuffle in huge hordes and eat flesh, you have Night of the Living Dead to thank for it. And this is by no means the only thing that happens in the Night of the Living Dead that has become a hallmark of the zombie genre. In the Night of the Living Dead, we have a very small amount of characters that have extremely clashing personalities holed up in the same small location against the zombie horde. They are therefore forced not only to deal with the unfolding apocalypse and constant threat of death, but also each other. Held up in the farmhouse that becomes the main setting of the movie is the sort of diverse cast you'd expect in a modern-day zombie movie. We have the young couple, the person who's just lost someone and is mourning, the family with an angry dad, protective mother and sick kid, and the hero. Although the term hero is probably overstepping it because Night of the Living Dead is not about heroism but survival. So I'll instead just say main characters, and the two main characters are Barbara and Ben. And depending on how good your eyesight is, you might have noticed that Ben is black and Barbara is a woman. And indeed, in 1968, this was impressively progressive and did turn heads. Although the creators of The Night of the Living Dead maintained that this wasn't done as a statement, that the main character Ben was written colorless, and it just so happens that his actor was the best audition. And that is most certainly not hard to believe, because Dwayne Jones, the actor of Ben, and all of the actors in The Night of the Living Dead are absolutely amazing actors, especially considering that this was a low-budget independent film. The utter sincerity that the actors bring to their characters in their roles manages to really bring across the down-to-earth real fear of the film. You never feel like you're watching a movie while watching The Night of the Living Dead, but more of a documentary of people trying to survive the apocalypse. This is also helped by the realistic spectrum of reactions to the apocalypse portrayed by the characters. We have Barbara, who instantly becomes catatonic after seeing her brother murdered by the first zombie in the movie in the first 3 minutes of the movie, and she basically just sits there very disturbed for the rest of the movie in what seems to be a deep state of shock. And while a lot of us like to convince ourselves that we'd be very good during a zombie apocalypse, it's probably more likely that a lot of us would react in the way that Barbara did. And another thing that makes it feel very natural and realistic is Harry and Ben coming to clashes so often. They both assume roles as alpha males, and they both have their own ideas of how best to survive. Harry is interested in saving his wife and his kid, and Ben just doesn't want to die in the apocalypse, which is pretty understandable. This somewhat of a rivalry comes to a climax towards the end of the film, as due to either malice or fear, Harry closes the door on Ben, leaving him to the zombie horde. Ben gets inside, and what follows is a rather vicious and definitive round of fisticuffs. Another element that appears throughout The Night of the Living Dead, which is now a common factor of zombie movies, is the way that they deliver exposition on the nature of the zombies themselves. The way that this information will be delivered is indicated at the beginning of the film, as while Johnny and Barbara pull into the cemetery, they hear on the car radio that something is not quite right. These updates through the media continue, as while held up in the farmhouse we hear through the radio and later through the television what exactly is going on. These updates are often given to us incomplete and often through the use of a news anchor or interview. As the movie develops, so too does the expert opinion of what is actually going on develops on the news. This too goes on to add more realism to the movie, as if a natural disaster like this did take place, the media wouldn't instantly know about it, and we would instead be slowly informed about what is going on as the experts figure it out. This, of course, is also not native to The Night of the Living Dead, and even the creators of The Night of the Living Dead admit that they probably got the idea from Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. But just like how they managed to bring all these elements of zombies together to create the perfect zombie, bringing in this element as a tool of exposition was a brilliant tool and really managed to add to the atmosphere and realism of the film. This also managed to add to the tension and fear of the film, as the characters found out that this was not an isolated event and that people were not coming to rescue them. This knowledge led to the characters attempting an escape, which led to the beginning of their downfall. However, aiding to this downfall is the fact that they had a Trojan horse in their midst the entire time. This Trojan horse came in the form of the little girl, who, in a scene that is also replicated in many zombie movies later, turns into a zombie herself during the movie. It is not entirely clear if this happens because she was bitten by a zombie and because zombies in The Night of the Living Dead turn people into zombies when biting them. We are, in fact, told that she was bitten by a zombie, and Ben does mention that we don't know what kind of diseases that the zombies carry.
One of those things grabbed her.
Bit her on the arm.
Who knows what kind of disease those things carry?
However, in one of the news reports, we're told that radiation is turning corpses into zombies, and that even the recently dead can be turned in only a very short time.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Therefore, it's not entirely clear whether the little girl dies because of the bite and then becomes a zombie because of the radiation, or if she becomes a zombie because of the bite. When first watching the film, I assumed that she had become a zombie because of the bite, but I assumed that because I came into the film with the knowledge that zombies, when biting people, turn them into zombies. However, when viewing the film one of the many times later, it did occur to me that it was slightly ambiguous. Monsters causing people to become monsters would not be something new from The Night of the Living Dead, and of course the practice dates back to vampires and werewolves. However, it is an extremely common trait in modern zombie films, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got this too from The Night of the Living Dead. And of course these zombies' role as flesh eaters makes this movie an extremely gory one, with scenes of zombies with their faces covered in blood and literally eating flesh. When this movie first came out, these scenes were extremely disturbing, and today they still hold up extremely well. I would say that The Night of the Living Dead is still one of the most gory zombie movies out there. However, it feels even more gory than modern day zombie movies because you don't really expect this level of gore in a 1960s movie. However, rather refreshingly, unlike some modern horror movies, The Night of the Living Dead does not depend on gore to make the movie scary. It does this instead through good storytelling, great acting, and an extremely spooky atmosphere. If you're one of those people that don't usually like watching black and white movies, you should really put that prejudice aside, because in The Night of the Living Dead, it does nothing but add atmosphere to the movie. I would actually go as far to say that it is no exaggeration to claim that The Night of the Living Dead is one of the greatest horror movies ever made, and if you call yourself a fan of the horror movie genre, you really owe it to yourself to check it out.
So if you're looking for an especially spooky horror movie to watch this Halloween, I highly suggest you head down to your local video store and pick up a copy of The Night of the Living Dead.
Great job, Barber. I'm sure that's going to prove to be a fantastic addition to the Stronghold. Oh, wait, it just got in the way.